and welcome back to Talking Toku, Boston's only podcast about Godzilla, Gamera, and all their kaiju friends. I'm your host, David Scrivani.
I'm your co-host, Brian Kershaw.
And today we have a very special guest, a guest that wasn't just a mutual friend of ours that happened to be in the room when we were recording. My good pal and esteemed director of Ultraman Sorta versus Godzilla, starring Matt Frank the movie, Jared Faust, also known as Xenofauna.
Hi there. Hello.
Jared, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I just woke up, just had coffee.
Well, I
Me
also
too.
just had coffee, but
Me
I didn't.
too.
I woke up at 9 o'clock, so
I woke up literally an hour ago.
well, that's something you guys have in common.
Hell
See,
yeah.
bonding.
Hell yeah.
I gotta say, Jared, it's kind of weird hearing your voice because I don't. The last time we saw each other in person was 2013.
Jeez, that's been so long.
I know.
I think your voice was considerably less deep.
Yeah, I was in high school at the time. I was a sophomore in high school.
Jeez, I'm old.
Well,
No.
don't worry too much about it.
I just had the realization last night that I am as old now as Godzilla was when I was born.
Oh God, that's a hell of a realization.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it very much at all.
Existential crisis incoming.
Live on the show. All right. Well, before we get to talking about Ultraman Sorta, we're gonna go into some news. Hey, Brian, do you have any news for me this time?
Absolutely not.
Well, let's go to our guest, Jared. Do you have any kaiju news for me? It's okay if you don't. I didn't prepare you.
I don't. I mean, they just announced a bunch of Ultraman releases.
Oh, don't worry. I have that on my list.
Oh, good.
So we will talk about that. Don't you worry. But first up on our news docket, SRS Cinema, the company who have brought us such indie toku films as Shinpei Hayashi's Raiga Trilogy, Daisuke Sato's Howl from Beyond the Fog, and Attack of the Giant Teacher, among many others. They just announced that they are going to have the North American distribution rights for both The Great Buddha Arrival and Nezura 1964. The Great Buddha Arrival is a remake of a lost 1934 film that may or may not have been the first kaiju film and features quite literally an all-star cast, including Akira Kubo, Ahira Takarada, Yukijiro Hotaru, Bin Furia, Shiro Sano, and many others. Brian, do you recognize any of those names?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I'm really bad at name recognition, though. So yeah.
Yeah, Jared, just so you know, feel free to give Brian all the shit.
Oh, okay. I don't know Brian, so I figured I would be nice. But now that you've given me permission,
No, be mean to Dave. Dave is a bully.
I'm plenty mean today.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
Good.
Jared's mean to me all the time.
Dave isn't as much of a gamer as I am, so he deserves to be bullied.
I don't see how that has anything to do with it. But Nezura 1964, which also stars Yukijiro Hotaru, is not, in fact, a remake of the canceled Daiei film that eventually led to the creation of Gamera, which is what I thought initially. But apparently it's a drama about that film. No word has been given to a release date just yet. Regardless, I'm very excited for both those movies. I was concerned as to whether we were actually going to get those in the States. But it's good to know that we will. I want to say you went... What was that?
I was gonna say big shout out to Ron Bonk and SRS.
Absolutely.
They're really, if SRS were to tank or something, we would be missing out on so much.
Absolutely. I still have Monster Seafood Wars and War of the God Monsters that I haven't touched them. I know you watched War of the God Monsters, and that was an interesting experience for you.
War of the God Monsters is nuts. It is an experience that I can't really sum up.
Well, Brian and I will have to have a viewing party at some point then.
I'm down.
Yeah.
And then Monster Seafood Wars is really, really charming. Once you kind of get Minoru Kawasaki's wavelength, it's really charming.
Sounds good. I don't think I've seen any of his other movies. Did he do Kaiju Mono?
He did do Kaiju Mono.
Yeah,
He also...
Our good pal Jacob Lingle, he told me that there was a Blu-ray and it was like $5 on Right Stuff Anime. So I'm like, all right, I'll buy that for $5. Why not? So I think that's coming in soon.
I got it for like $7 on Amazon, and it's not the best movie I've ever seen. But again, like once you kind of have to understand Kawasaki's wavelength, and I think the first couple times I saw his movies, I wasn't there yet. And then after Kaiju Mono, it's like, no, I think I get it. And then I watched Monster Seafood Wars, like, yeah, no, I get it now. I'm a Kawasaki fan now.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing some of the other movies. All right. Next up on the news, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time, which is one hell of a mouthful of a title. It's also the final film in the Rebuild of Evangelion series, has finally been given an international release date of August 13th via Amazon Prime. The film was released earlier this year in Japan after being stuck in development hell for years for a variety of reasons, most notably director Hideaki Anno taking a break to direct Shin Godzilla, and of course, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh, what is that?
I know. Who would have thought that COVID would, delay film production?
Wow.
Me. So I'm glad that we're getting that released in the States. Rest assured, we'll probably be doing an episode about it once Brian actually watches the rest of the movies.
Yeah, I was gonna say when it was like around the 4th of July because I was in New York at the time.
Yeah,
and Dave was just like, text me, all right, you gotta watch all of Evangelion now.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. I'll add it to the list.
Any thoughts on Evangelion, Jared?
Nothing terribly specific. It's been so long since I've seen any of the Rebuild movies. I'm looking forward to the G Kids Blu-ray at some point this year.
Yeah, whenever that ends up coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that was announced like a year ago.
Only October, actually.
God.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I will go back and rewatch the Rebuilds and stuff, but I've been on a major like old school like shot on film animation kick
Understandable.
lately, so I'm really looking forward to the Blu-rays of the classic show.
Yeah, I watched.
Also, now that I am older and more aware of my own depression, I'm curious to go back and watch Evangelion with fresher, more jaded eyes.
I'm sure that'll be an interesting experience.
I haven't. I didn't watch. I had the last time I watched. The only time that I watched the original show was like back like early in college when I was definitely in a position to be like, "What the hell is going on?" Whereas now it's just like, I bet I'll get it now.
Yeah, I mean, the first Rebuild movie is just a remake of the first couple episodes, but once 2 comes in, it's like diverges completely.
Oh yeah. The Rebuilds, I remember loving back when I saw it.
Yeah, I need to definitely rewatch the third one because I think I dozed off during it. So it'll technically be my first viewing once I rewatch it before the new one comes out. Next up, we have not a whole lot of details on this one, but Shochiku and Toei have announced Kaiju Cleanup, a new film about what happens after the attacking kaiju is defeated and what happens to its remains, which is a topic they kind of went into on the first Pacific Rim, but they didn't. It wasn't, the whole movie wasn't about it.
Now, this is a wacky idea that I like.
Oh, okay.
It's Garbage Day.
Shut up.
There's a couple different things that have kind of gone into it. Because there's Day of the Kaiju, which was, I don't remember his name, but it was Higuchi's understudy. He was the assistant director on Attack on Titan.
Mm-hmm.
He did a short film called Day of the Kaiju that was very similar in concept. Also has a lot of similarities to Shin Godzilla, which I think he also worked on. And then there's a really great episode of Ultraman Tiga where a dead kaiju washes up on the beach and Guts is having to like figure out what to do with it. And then it wakes up and it's a zombie kaiju and it's really disgusting.
Well, that leads in pretty well to our next news topic because Mill Creek, they just can't stop with the Ultraman releases, man. They really can't. To celebrate Ultraman Day on July 10th, they announced 3 new releases, being Ultraman Tiga, Dyna, and Gaia, all of which will be out this year. Tiga will be out on October 5th, and it will include Ultraman Tiga Side Story, Revival of an Ancient Giant. Dyna will be out November 2nd, and finally Gaia will be out December 4th, all of which will be on DVD, not Blu-ray. Still some weird stuff with the Blu-ray transfers there. I'm not entirely... I don't know what the details are, as unlike
It's
the...
complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are Blu-rays in Japan, but they're upscales because the shows were mastered in standard definition. They were filmed on film. They did shoot them all on 35 millimeter, I believe. But it's like a Star Trek: The Next Generation thing, where in order to have a proper HD restoration, they would have to rebuild the show from the ground up. Because it was all mastered in SD because of like all the video compositing that they did and like the early CG and stuff.
Right. Well, I'm sure it'll look fine. I mean, a friend of mine, apparently he's seen some of the upscales and they look fine. So I'm not worried about it personally. I'll be happy.
I just watched Gaia last year in standard definition, and you can't really get past the video compositing, even if it were HD upscale.
Right.
So like the quality of the show is still there. It's amazing. So it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And if anything, I'll just be happy to have more Ultraman to watch.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, that about does it for the news. So I think we're going into our main topic of discussion, which is you, Jared.
Oh no.
You just released a short film that has been in the works for the past 10 years now, probably more.
10 years? No. Actually, it's slightly less than 10 years.
Okay.
First scene of the film. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about it first. So it's Ultraman Sorta versus Godzilla, starring Matt Frank, the movie. And yeah, it was an idea that came into being because Ultraman Sorta was a character that I had invented in high school, and I'd done a couple films with at that point. And at that point, I was working on 2 or 3 other projects involving the character. That those are lost forever and will never see the light of day. Oh well. But I did, amongst all the footage that I lost, I did recover Ultraman Sorta versus Godzilla when I was doing some data mining on some hard drives last year. And I'm like, oh my god. And I was looking at the footage and I'm like, this is actually still like pretty viable. I think I can assemble this into something. But yeah, the original idea was we have a big convention here in Atlanta called Dragon Con. Very, very famous sci-fi fantasy convention, and Matt Frank, he's a good friend of mine. He was coming for his first Dragon Con, and coincidentally, Billy DuBose of Godzilla Battle Royale was also coming to Dragon Con, and he was bringing his Godzilla suit. And so with all these things going to be in Atlanta at the same time, it's like, we should shoot a movie. Let's do this. And so the very first scene of the film was shot in August of 2011, so it'll be 10 years next month.
Wow. So this is kind of like an anniversary celebration, finally releasing that for all this time.
Yeah, kind of. But then, like, it was a really weird production because, like, we got the first scene shot, and then just because of how like seat of the pants everything came together, we weren't able to shoot anything but the first scene that year because like people just didn't have time, and then it rained all weekend.
Oh. So
even if Billy had come over to my place to shoot the stuff, it wouldn't have happened. And then the next year we're like, okay, well let's try again next year because we have this one scene. And this is a fun idea, and everyone's going to be back, And so August, September 2012, Dragon Con 2012, we all get together, and we shoot we shoot Matt's big spoiler scene for the end of the film, and we shot a whole bunch of like Ultraman sort of versus Godzilla footage, that isn't in the film. Like a lot of like Godzilla's Rampage from the film was shot that day, but then there's a whole bunch of sort of versus Godzilla footage. We were running out of daylight, and just running out of time, and so there was a bunch of like, okay, we just got to get them fighting, and it was really bad. There's some interesting shot compositions, but it's just all like there's no choreography. It doesn't work.
Mm.
And I got that back into the edit. And we also shot the other dialogue scene at that point, but I got all that footage back into the edit, and I was just really unhappy with it. And so we wound up hatching the plan to do another shoot where we actually brought Billy down for a few days. And so this was like May of 2013. He like rented a U-Haul and brought his Godzilla suit down, and we just did a whole weekend of just shooting this revised battle scene with all these like upgraded special effects. We actually did some destructible building effects in there, and just like really tried to go like a lot more primo with it and a lot more well thought out than the original shoot was for the special effects. And yeah, I mean, it wound up turning out a lot better. I mean, the film itself, I keep saying, like, it in the end, especially 10 years on, I'm a lot better as an editor now than when I was originally assembling this, because the original cuts of this were just kind of like plotting and not there yet. But I'm a much better editor now, and I was able to like cut a bunch of stuff out and streamline it into a much like snappier production. And I think it turned out better than it had really any right to be.
Yeah, no, I was about to say the exact same thing, like, because you had sent me a bunch of rough cuts like way early on when this was still like, in the post-production stages way back when. But
yeah,
and now it's like it's insane how well this turned out for a film that's 10 years old, like. And
when I found the footage, I was thinking about finishing it. I wasn't sure how to release it, because like we did this under my old production umbrella group was called Lobster Dance, and Lobster Dance has since passed on, and so I didn't necessarily want an old project associated with Xenofauna, like, because that's my new thing now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily want to dredge up the past. But then when it started turning out so good, like I got it to Picture Lock and sent it off for the sound design to Christopher Marty, Cosmic Monster Sounds, who did an amazing job. But like at that point, it was like, you know what? No, I'm going to put the Xenofauna logo on this because this just looks too good. Like, I'm going to claim this.
I mean,
at one point... Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I feel like any of the old Lobster Dance crew, like, they had no plans to do anything with it. You're the one who had the footage anyways, so...
Oh, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, no, like, it wasn't a question of, like, anyone else from Lobster Dance doing anything with it, but it was just, when I first got the footage before I edited it together, I was just thinking of those old rough cuts. I'm like, it's probably going to be kind of dumb, and what I'll probably do is I'll edit it together and finish it, but I'll just, like, take it to, like, cons, I'll show it at G-Fest. But ultimately, it turned out so well. I'm like, no, I want to show this off. Yeah.
And I mean, I think it turned out for the best, because I haven't really seen a whole lot of people's reactions, but I mean, I sent you that video last night of me and my friends in Fitchburg watching it. They loved it. Like, I gotta find the quote from my friend Connor Murphy, who helped do our intro and outro music for this podcast.
Oh yeah,
he said, "I say this with full knowledge that I've only seen like 2 Godzilla movies. This is my favorite Godzilla movie."
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I've had a bunch of people in like YouTube comments and stuff say that like this is their favorite Godzilla fan film, which is
Oh, that's great. That's really. I'm
which
glad.
is
Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, and well, I'm really happy to hear that because like the whole thing, the whole like design of the film was just taking the piss out of fan films, you know. Because they're just like I'm gonna make a Godzilla versus my dumb Ultraman character, and yeah, it's like and having Matt in it, you know, was just it was all kind of very cynical because like knowing that Matt was going to be in it was just like, oh yeah, no, like that'll get views on its own. You know?
That's why he's in the title.
That's why he's in the title. Yeah, it's like, and you know that, and we wanted it to have one of those really long titles, you know, and yeah, it was just. And then of course, you know, the ending was the only way it could have ended.
Oh, absolutely. I've always loved that ending, even like way back when I've seen the rough cuts. That the cease and desist always made me laugh.
Not a lot of stuff makes me laugh like out loud, like on my own. Like usually I laugh loud at stuff with people, but like on my own, I usually just a little bit of air comes out of my nose. I was like laughing at that, like at 2 a.m. in my room. I was laughing.
And the best part is it's not even dated still.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean, there's parts of the film that I wound up cutting out because they dated really badly. You know, but like that one still holds up.
Oh, Toho.
And it'll still probably hold up for many years to come.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sure.
Man, we're just making sure Toho never has anything to do with us ever, are we, Brian?
See that, you know, I was thinking about it the other day, and remember way back when we first started this podcast, I the one time I had news, which was when Bungie put out the competition for if they want
the Destiny skins, right?
If they want like the dinosaur skins or the classic monster skins, and Godzilla was one of them, and I was just like, has Toho seen this? I wonder if they'll get mad.
Well, there's a fine line between it, but I'm sure it didn't matter because that didn't end up winning the competition.
But I was curious, what if it did? Would they have to license it?
We'll never know. But
I assume Toho probably would have come down on them.
Yeah, probably. We don't care what video games you've made. You're not allowed to use it.
Bungie's a big company. They're owned by Microsoft. I'm sure they would have worked something out.
Not anymore. They're independent.
All right. Oh, well. I don't care. But
they'll get sued into the ground.
No more Destiny for you, Brian. Sorry.
Oh, no. I'm so sad.
So I know there was some stuff you were talking to me about last night, that there was just a couple shoots for the movie that just never happened. Like, and there was an alternate ending.
That's one of the reasons it was already in limbo before the footage went missing. Is the original version of it was there were more scenes that we were going to shoot. Like there were more shoots that we kept trying to schedule, and we kept like there were other effects that we were actively building for it, and that we actively finished for it, and it just never got around to doing it. Because the original, there's a whole news sequence in the film, and originally the scene of Godzilla coming and attacking the building from like that POV shot was actually going to start with someone on the ground. And so there's a really fun technique where you can like do a whip pan up from just regular footage of people into a special effects shot. It all looks like one seamless shot. And so that was kind of the intention there. So we never shot any news reporters, so I just wound up going without it. And we got Mike Dent to do a really great like news report voiceover for that scene to kind of tie it all together. And then what else? So originally, after Ultraman sorta defeats Godzilla, there was going to be a through line from like the scene where it's like, oh, I don't think anyone even watches our movies. So when sorta defeats Godzilla, the interaction that he has with Matt, Matt's, this is the best day ever. that was originally supposed to happen after Sorta transformed, and the Sorta giving the thumbs up and turning around, like looking down and like talking to someone, was originally a fan being like, "I'm a big fan of yours. I love your movies." And that never got shot. But that was the original intention. There's actually a couple more seconds of Sorta's interactions that were cut out of the film because they just didn't fit anymore. But it worked out really well being able to put Matt back into that scene, just kind of shuffling the footage around. And then when Sorta goes down after he's attacked by Godzilla again, rather than just coming to bear down on Sorta, Godzilla was going to keep going past him, and there was going to be an orphanage. And like there were going to be people on the street like, "Oh no, not the orphanage!" And that's when Matt shows up to save the day. And then, of course, there was another scene where Matt has even more fans than Sorta, who are just like fanboying over Matt. You're just like a crowd of people who are just like really excited that Matt is now the giant hero. So that was all the stuff that never got shot. And like there was an orphanage that we built that was assembled out of some miniatures from a music video that I had done. And so we it was two like colonial style houses because it was a pirate music video, so it was like Caribbean colonial style, and we just jammed them together and gave them a new paint job and made this like really rundown looking orphanage. And I was really happy with that like kit bash of a miniature, and we never shot it. And then oh god, what's the word I'm looking for? There was an alternate ending we shot at Dragon Con, and it was me and Matt sitting at Matt's art table in the artist alley. And we wound up throwing it away because the audio was crap and the lighting was crap, and it just looked bad. But it was basically, it turned out the whole thing turned out to be Matt's fantasy. And it was me like, Matt, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. So that actually exists. There's footage of that, but it's really bad. So just like, you know what? No, this it ends with Matt growing giant. That's it. That's the end of it.
Well, if SRS Cinema ever does a release for Sorta versus Godzilla, maybe we'll see that in the deleted scenes.
Lots of extra features.
Probably not. But yeah, no. So that was fun. It was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think, is there anything else we're talking about? I mean, honestly, the most worthwhile stuff to see is the deleted Sorta versus Godzilla footage, because, like I said, it was crap. It didn't deserve to be in the movie, but I am pretty happy with some of the actual miniature setups from that. The whole thing was all miniature based, which was really exciting to work with, and that's been getting a really great response from people too. Like, that we did everything with miniatures, classic style. So I've been really happy that people have been responding to that aspect of it.
Well, that's good. I mean, I feel like that's kind of your whole, I guess, mantra at Xenofauna. Like you're picking up the torch for, classic style tokusatsu.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm very much a fan of like getting my hands dirty, and like for me, I'm really interested in doing as much as I can in pre-production, so that once I shoot the footage, it's done, and I just have to edit it together. I don't have to spend a ton of time in front of the computer like adding the effects. And I'm the kind of person, I really like the tactile feel. I really like building things with my hands. And like making creatures and buildings and stuff, and to me too, I'm also not really interested in realism. Like, I'm really obsessed with like Showa era tokusatsu, where it's the handmade quality of it is a lot more important to me than anything like quote unquote realism. So if things look a little off, a little surreal, I think to me that's a positive. Um, uh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I feel like it has like a lot more um, charm and heart to it
Yeah, charm was what I was
than
gonna
anything
say.
like quote unquote real looking.
yeah, well, and I think people respond to it a lot more than like, some people might think. Like I just did a couple test shots for like an island effect. Like a classic, island on the horizon, like you would see in an old Toho movie. And because I'm using a water tank, I'm using one of those like 2 foot wide aquariums that you find at thrift shops all the time because people get fish and then get rid of fish. um, and so it's like way too small to get like really realistic water ripples. Um, but like even just the clip I did, which used a little paper cutout, I built an actual miniature of an island, but I haven't reshot the scene yet. But even just like with the little paper cutout and the gray sky, people have really been responding to that. Like it's got a feel to it, you know, um, that I think you only really get with that really handmade approach.
Yeah, and I was blown away by that island. Like that was so cool to see because I had no idea how they did that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, I mean it's really satisfying too. I mean, I wound up I have like half a dozen projects that I should be working on, and I wound up doing that island because I've been thinking about how to pull that off and if I could personally pull that off for a couple of years now. And just one day I'm just like, what, I need to test it out. I need to know. I need to know if I can do it, and then I can get back to work on my other stuff. Knowing whether or not it's possible. Um, I was really happy with the result.
and now that's just it's in your repertoire to use for any number of future projects.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and I'm definitely planning on using it very soon.
All right.
So, um, but yeah, I gotta finish. I'm currently working on an original kaiju short called Big Mood.
I was just about to ask about that.
Wait, what is it called?
Yeah, Big Mood.
Okay. That's a big mood. I like it.
Yeah, and I mean it's I keep trying to temper everyone's expectations because it's I don't want people to think like it's another Howl from Beyond the Fog. Like it's not going to be like a half-hour long, like really story-driven thing. It's going to be about 2 to 4 minutes long, and my background is in art. I studied art in college, and I wound up doing film instead. So my approach to film is very expressionistic a lot of the times, and Big Mood is kind of my current like apex of that. Like it's very much it's less about like a really story driven thing, and it's more about how I'm feeling at the moment. Tying back into Evangelion, it's very much kind of an expression of kind of how I've been feeling for the past year, um, using kaiju movies as a medium.
Oh, so it's like Inside with kaiju.
I haven't seen that yet, but I guess yeah.
All right.
From what I've heard, I would not be surprised. Yeah, I've heard a little snippets of it. So I mean, yeah, kind of. Without going too much into it, it's like like everything about the film kind of represents aspects of what I'm feeling. From the monster to the character wandering through the streets at night. The whole thing it's a character. She's wandering around downtown Atlanta in the middle of the night, with a little device, and she's searching for something. And the something eventually winds up being this monster, and it's a really it's kind of an amalgamation of like a Biollante, Shin Godzilla, Hedorah, the space slug from Empire Strikes Back, it's kind of pulling a bunch of those ideas together. It's this big, gross. I think it's going to wind up being kind of slimy in the final version. Actually, the puppet for the monster that I've been building, you can't really see it in any of the pictures. I've been posting a lot of behind the scenes stuff to Instagram, so if anyone wants to go look at that, follow me. It's Xenofauna on Instagram. But you can't really see it in the behind the scenes photos. But in the puppet's mouth, I've actually built in these two little tubes, so that like when it roars, I can like pump in like black bile that's like, spilling out of its mouth. You know, I want it to be really upsetting, but also kind of goofy and preposterous at the same time. Like it has these weird like dealy bopper eyes on the sides of its head. You know, yeah, it's a fun design. I'm really happy with it. I've been really happy with how the puppet's been turning out. I need to get back to work and finish it soon. But yeah, I'm really happy with it so far.
And you, correct me if I'm wrong, you've shot all like the non-FX stuff, right?
Yeah, back it was literally the day before daylight savings time. It was like, we should probably shoot this like this weekend before the daylight catches up to us. Yeah. So we went out and we shot all that, and I've already done a rough cut of all of that, and it looks good. Got some friends out there to help me, and this was before the vaccine, so it was really difficult to line up. Because originally I had another friend cast in the role, and I wound up having to use someone else because my other friend was having to work too much, and I have a heart condition, so I was really concerned about exposure, and so just like the schedules weren't lining up as far as like being able to like isolate and test, and so I wound up a friend of mine who was working from home. And so it was a lot easier for her to isolate, wound up stepping in. And then even then, there was like some issues with there was like a false positive at one point, and like some other like, oh God, so it wound up from the original inception of the idea, it wound up taking like 6 months to get the actual footage shot for it. Just trying to, shoot around COVID restrictions and make sure, none of us were gonna die. But it wound up being good. It wound up being good. It was a really fun shoot. We were all wondering. It was 4 of us. It was me, the actor, her husband, and then another good friend of mine who was on as a production assistant, wandering around the streets in the middle of the night. At one point, we had to put up a bunch of posters because there was this long blank construction wall in one of the shots I wanted to get, and just like, we're gonna put up a ton of posters on this so it looks cool. So we're in the middle of the night putting up all these posters, hoping that like the cops don't come and be like, oh, what are you doing? Because they were all vaguely inflammatory posters. You'll see it in the film. It's a classic IWW poster, the Black Cat General Strike poster. That's a really striking design. And I felt very strongly that I wanted just a shit ton of these all across the wall in this one shot. And I think it looks really cool. It's going to be fun in the final film to see in that plan. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to have like an extra production assistant and everything. Like I couldn't just go out like me and the actor, because I wanted just A, someone to watch our back, and B, someone to help us like get these posters up quick and take them down quick. It was funny though. There were definitely a few people who walked by as we were putting it up and were like, yeah.
Out of curiosity, like what time did you film this at? Because like you said, it's in downtown Atlanta, and it's just it just looks like vacant. There's like no one around in this huge city.
We got down there around 9 o'clock. and then we kind of started shooting we wound up wrapping around 2 in the morning. And so we there were still people out and about when we started shooting, so we started shooting in, more desolate, like places that were already kind of desolate. And then as crowds dwindled, we would move into the generally more crowded areas of the city. And if people would pass by, we would like wait. There were shots where like we would hold for like 10 minutes waiting for cars to disappear. Because I wanted the city to feel as empty as possible, as part of just like the whole mood of the shoot. I wanted it to feel very lonely. Yeah. But yeah, no, it looks really good. I'm looking forward to getting that finished and sharing it with the world. I don't know when that will be. Just because the effects work is moving kind of slow, because only recently have I been able to have, like, post-vaccine, have I been able to have more people, like, come help me with things. But in the meantime, like I said, I juggle, like, half a dozen projects at any given time, so, like, I just shot a tutorial video for my YouTube channel, and which that wound up being needlessly complicated, because the tutorial video came out of like on YouTube, they encourage you, like, oh, you should have like a call to action, you should make sure everyone knows they need to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm like, well, how do I do that in a way that I don't absolutely hate? And then it became, if you go watch Ultraman Sword versus Godzilla, it's the first film I attached it to, but it's this like TV that's playing static, and then it cuts on to my character Zordak, commanding the audience to, you feel strangely compelled to like, comment, and subscribe. And then from that, I'm like, well, if I'm going to have him playing on, I have this little vintage black and white TV that I love putting in my films. And so, like, if I'm going to have him playing on that, I want him, like, playing his hands towards the camera, because he's, like, hypnotizing the audience. But if I'm going to do that, I don't want to just use gloves. I want to have, like, claws, like really creepy claws. So I need to make some claws. Well, that would actually be really easy to, like, shoot the build for that, because that's a really easy build. I could do a tutorial with that. And so then it evolved into this whole tutorial build. And then just because of how I am working, I go through these long periods where I have a hard time getting off the couch. I do not pretend to not be depressed. I'm a very depressed person. But then I'll go through these periods, like this last week leading up to Sword versus Godzilla. I hadn't shot the tutorial, which means I didn't have the claws, which means I hadn't shot the call to action yet. And I was almost going to just not bother. And then I was talking to a friend of mine and just like, wow, this sounds bad. No, I should do it. And so in the last week, I shot the entire tutorial. And then the day before Ultraman Sword versus Godzilla launched, I had my friend come over to be a production assistant to shoot me in front of a black screen to be the element that shows up on the TV. And then I had to get that into the computer, color grade it, and then set up a whole new art-directed shot with the TV. And this is like 2:00 the night before the launch.
Oh my gosh. Really running down the clock there, huh?
Yeah, no, and so I'm shooting this, and then I have to get that footage shot. Once it's shot, I have to get that into the computer and then color grade it, and then I have to dub it over because when I was wearing the mask for the shot, I'm like really muffled, so I have to have a new track dubbed over. So I have to dub that over and then like edit it down into what it needs to be, and then attach that to Ultraman Sword versus Godzilla, and then get that uploaded.
Oh my god.
That's my process. Like it winds up being like, I wind up, having like a week or two where I'm just like, I can't do anything. I can barely feed myself. And then like I have a week where it's just like, I have to do everything right now. And like, I just barely sleep, like just going just crazy. So that's the Xenofauna process.
You heard it here first, folks.
A peek behind the curtain.
But yeah, so now I have all that footage for the tutorial, and I have a couple of other like framing shots that I need to do for that, to kind of bring it all together. And it'll probably be a minute before I get it all edited together because I have a commission that's long overdue that I have to finish. Sorry if you're listening to this, client. But it's a really fun commission, so I'm really excited to work on it. But it'll be fun. Like I'm not planning on doing like my YouTube channel is not meant to be a tutorial channel. Because like shooting these builds, especially when I'm doing it by myself, is like really irritating. I think the next time I do a tutorial, I'm definitely going to have to get someone on board to be a production assistant. Just so I have someone to keep me sane through all of this. Because this was like originally I was going to do a tutorial with this commission, and I was writing a whole script around it. And that's part of the reason it's taken so long. But I was gonna when I did a Godzilla puppet a few months back, and then I also did an original monster, the Molmuth puppet. And people are like, oh, can you do a tutorial on how you build your puppets? I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then when I had this commission, I'm like, I did the same thing. Like, can I double task? You know, can I do the tutorial with this commission and not have to do a separate tutorial later on? But then the commission was such a complicated build in terms of like the design that we've settled on and some of the features of the puppet, that I ultimately, after like writing like the 7-page script for what the puppet build would be, like, this is too complicated. I can't do this. So at some point down the line, I'm going to do a much simpler puppet and make that a tutorial. But I don't want to give people the impression that I'm a tutorial channel, even though I want to spread the knowledge to people, you know? I feel very strongly about like trying to democratize tokusatsu, as it were. So I really want to help people learn how to do these things and empower people to make their own monster stuff. I don't want to like hoard my secrets, you know. But making tutorials is really irritating, so they are going to be few and far between.
Patience is key.
Because I mean, yeah, because ultimately, like, as much as I do want to spread the love, spread the knowledge, what's ultimately most important to me is my own expression as an artist. And tutorials, though I am making them overly complicated so I can express myself as an artist. Like when I was telling my dad about the tutorial process, well, why don't you just like set up the camera and just like film a shot and then like talk over it? And I'm just like, no, that's not fun. That's not interesting. So like the tutorial like has to be like its own like film, capital F, you know. With like there's honest to God, there are special effects sequences I'm going to be shooting for it. Because I can't do anything simply. But I mean, I think it'll be worth it in the end. I think it'll be really good. But again, ultimately, I kind of, with like Xenofauna, I kind of want to be somewhere between like Tsuburaya Productions and I don't know if you're familiar with Brian David Gilbert.
It rings a bell.
He has his own independent YouTube channel now, but that's the main thing he works on. But he worked with Polygon for a while doing the Unraveled videos. And he's just this really weird character of a YouTuber, because he's popular enough now. He's just like he does comedy, but it's like really like surreal comedy. But then also he's not afraid to do like even weirder stuff. I was kind of a little traumatized one day because like, oh look, Brian David Gilbert has a new video. I bet it'll be really funny because I love his comedy. And it was like a psychological horror film.
Oh no!
But it still fit in perfectly with his library of work. Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard to explain, you know. I love that versatility, and so that's kind of what I want Xenofauna to be. Like, I want to just be able to release whatever I want, and like the only connecting, like the reason I called it Xenofauna is like the main thing is there has to be creatures, you know, because when I was doing lobster dance with that part of my life, it was like doing monsters and doing like monsters and miniatures was like just like one aspect of it. Like the last thing that I did with lobster dance before it kind of dissolved was a drama, and it never got finished. It wasn't very good because as much as I love like drama films, like one of my favorite filmmakers is Wong Kar-wai, and all he does are like these melancholy drama films. As much as I love that, it's not me. And so when it was like, okay, when it came time to like strike out on my own and do this new company, as it were, I'm like, I'm only gonna do monster films now. Like it can, like the genre can be anything. Like maybe it is a drama, maybe it's a comedy, maybe it's whatever. Or in the case of Big Mood, maybe it's a painting in the form of a kaiju film. But the overarching factor is like there has to be creatures. Even if I don't do giant monsters and miniatures, like it's gonna have creatures in it, and it's gonna be all handmade. Like very striking out in a much more specific niche than I was in before. Yeah. Which I think ultimately will resonate. I'm excited to build it out and show people more of the weird things I have going on in my head.
Well, I think people will enjoy it nonetheless.
Yeah, no, I hope so.
I know I do.
Good.
I'll force Brian here to watch everything else you've made so far that's up on your YouTube channel.
I'm down for it.
All right, good.
Well, it won't take very long. I think it'll take less than 10 minutes.
I spend
let's see.
I spend a lot of time watching YouTube, so it's not going to be a problem for me.
Yeah, let's see here. There are currently 6 videos on my YouTube. Only one of them is over a minute long. And that's
All right.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
All right.
Literally everything else is under a minute, and one of those videos is just a trailer for Sword vs. Godzilla that is 20 seconds long.
There you go.
Well, let's get a
But
watch
everything
party
else is
going.
Do what?
Let's get a watch party going.
Yeah. But everything else are little test videos, and I got a couple of test videos for the puppets that I built that I think turned out really well. I love those videos a lot. I feel really dorky watching my own stuff, but I do it a lot because I'm really happy, especially with the Godzilla puppet that I built. I'm really happy with how that turned out. And if everything works out, I will have another little surprise coming around later this year using the Godzilla puppet. But we'll see. I never want to promise anything, just knowing how my process goes. You know what I mean? Like, as I've already described to you, it's pretty chaotic. But it's a thing that I've had in mind for quite a while, and now that I've basically ever since I started trying to build my own Godzilla puppet a couple of years ago, like now that I finally finished, I'm like, oh, I can finally do that thing.
And the puppet looks phenomenal too.
Thank you. Yeah, like that was a really fun build because everyone's always like, "Oh, what version are you making?" I'm like, I'm literally just improvising this. Like, I have a bunch of pictures that I'm looking at, but it's like, I'm not looking at one suit. I'm looking at like the 2002 suit, the 84 suit, the 68 suit, And so you wind up with is this like, what you wind up with is this kind of 1960s proportioned Godzilla, but it has ears and it has like the 2002 textures to it. Like I gave him like the really spiky shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
And it's if you're a creative person, and you're a Godzilla fan. Like, I highly recommend, if design your own Godzilla. It's so satisfying. Like, and I know most people do. Like, like every artist in the fandom that I know has designed their own Godzilla. But especially if you like sculpt or anything, like make a Godzilla. It's so satisfying. And especially like doing it as a hand puppet that I can bring to life. It's just it's great. I'm not gonna do any more fan films like Sort of versus Godzilla. Like, as far as I'm concerned, my fan film days are behind me, and I'm 100% original from here on out. With the caveat that I have a Godzilla puppet, and it's really fun. Like to me, it's like it's okay as long as it's under a minute long and it's just like a little vignette. It doesn't count.
I mean, you went the extra mile to put the tube in his mouth to breathe the atomic breath, so you might as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, totally. And it just, yeah. Well, and it's also really fun too because I painted all of his spines with a blacklight paint.
Oh, that's
so
right.
So you can actually, with a blacklight, you can do the spines lighting up in camera. Which is just it was deeply satisfying. Like I was when I had the idea in the middle of the build because I just had all these blacklight paints that I was borrowing from my mentor, Shane Morton of the Silver Screen Effects Lab, possibly most well known for the Cheddar Goblin.
Ooh.
Yeah, I had all these blacklight paints in my workshop that I was borrowing. I'm like, oh my god, what if I paint the spines with blacklight paints? And it wound up looking so cool. Like, I shot this little video to send around to my friends, but I was gonna keep it secret until the end of the build. But then I'm like, no, I'm posting this video. This is too cool. Like, I couldn't wait. Like, the world needs to see this. This is too fucking dope. Yeah, so really, really happy with how that turned out.
So is there anything else you want to cover before we go to the next segment, quote unquote?
I don't know what else there is to cover. I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to ask that I missed, or.
I mean, I only had a very, very sparse list of topics, and we kind of covered them all basically. Unless you want to talk about like how, because I actually don't know how quote unquote involved you are with Cosmic Monster.
He's a friend of mine. And I remember it was years ago when we were still with Lobster Dance. He sent us a message, saying, "Hey, if you ever need music for monster films, let me know." I'm like, okay, and I didn't actually respond at the time, and I just forgot about it for a couple of months. And then there was a film we were working on at the time that I didn't turn out very well, so it's not online anymore. Sorry. But we needed music for a segment for it, and our original composer, he'd done some really great songs for the movie, but when it came time to do like the score for this one scene, he was just like, I gotta tap out. Like, I don't feel like I'm bringing my A game to this. And like, that's cool. I respect that. And then like, oh god, who do we get? And I'm like, oh my god, there was this other dude who messaged us like 3 months ago. And so from there, we became really good friends, and I sent him a bunch of stuff for feedback and things. And so when it came time to do Sort of versus Godzilla last year, I was just like, hey, could I talk you into doing this, and I'll just give you free reign to do whatever nerdy shit you want. And so I gave him free reign to do the sound design for Sort of versus Godzilla, and he did all these weird little fun touches. The only guideline that I gave him was no ifukube. I wanted it all to be anything but Akira Ifukube, just partially out of spite. I get really frustrated by people who insist that you have to have the Ifukube Godzilla film in a movie. I'm like, some of my favorite Godzilla movies don't touch it. Like, you don't like I. All due respect, it's one of the greatest pieces of music in film history, but like you don't need it. And sometimes when films force it in, like I find it doesn't fit. Like I find whenever it's been forced into like Michiru Oshima's score.
I was about to say, like, that the one scene in Megaguirus, it just sounds so out of place compared to the rest of the score.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's fine. Like, it doesn't break the movie, and it's like, it's good. It's good music. It's Godzilla theme, cool. But like, ultimately, I think the movie would have been stronger if she was just allowed to do her own thing, especially because she has one of the best Godzilla themes.
Yep.
And so yeah, so I told Chris, no Ifukube, and he's like, okay, got it. And then he wound up doing Ifukube for the cease and desist scene, and like I wasn't expecting it. Like, so when he sent me the first cut of the sound mix, and that dun 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 dun, I just died.
I mean, I could not imagine that scene without that march. Honestly, I feel like that.
Yeah, no, And then it went to Richiro Manabe's Godzilla theme, which is the underdog of Godzilla themes. It's the drunken Godzilla theme, and I love it so much. And I just again I died all over again. It was so fucking funny. But then he did all sorts of other weird stuff, like the record scratch that bookends the film. Well, because it opens up with a few bars from the Spielbaum theme, which, like, again, I didn't tell him to do anything, and he kept doing tracks, and I'm like, oh my god, this is one of my favorite tracks, and he just did it. So it opens with like the Spielbaum theme over the Xenofauna logo. I'm like, yes, thank you. But then the record scratch that comes right after that, like, I thought, oh, that's really funny. That's a great record scratch. Da da da. And he's like, that's the Mega Neuron from Rodam.
What?
Yes. If you go back and listen,
rewatch
someone in the YouTube comments actually picked up on that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, no, that's actually the Mega Neuron. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, that's why I hired you. Because he did the mix as well for the first short film we released under Xenofauna, which was just a short little aesthetic test. There was a film back before COVID. There was a film called Impatience that I was working on that I'd still love to make at some point, but it was just a happier film than I felt like making after COVID.
Yeah.
But so if you go and you watch that first video, like, that aesthetic was kind of what Impatience was going to be, and it was me and the actress and the creature actor. We were all getting together to like test out lenses and just kind of get a feel for working together. And we made this little like 45-second short, and Chris did a really fun sound design for it. And I don't remember all the weird shit he did for it. But I just remember him like, oh yeah, and then in this I did this little thing. I'm like, that's ridiculous. And just like he gets really nerdy about sound design in a way that I really appreciate, because I love doing like really weird nerdy things that are like in jokes for me that no one else will know. Like Lobster Dance Productions. The Productions is literally because I wanted it to rhythmically sound like Tsuburaya Productions. It's like no one is ever gonna know that it's, but it's like Lobster Dance Productions, Tsuburaya Productions. So I wanted it to have the same rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of on the same wavelength when it comes to sound design. Is like, I know that no one else will understand what I have done here, but it makes me really happy that I did it. And I'm like, yes, I want you working on all of this.
And I mean, it's definitely a good fit that way. I mean, I've listened to some of his music, and I'm not like, surf rock isn't really my thing, but I definitely appreciate it, and it's some great stuff for sure.
Yeah, no, he does some great stuff too. Like the Molmoth puppet, because it was the original monster. I asked, like, do you have anything? Like, can I bum some music out of you, basically? And so he designed the roar for the Molmoth, and he had this really fun atmospheric track he'd done before that he put onto it. And just he's super talented. Like, I highly recommend people check him out. and I really look forward to continuing to work with him in the future. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and I mean, I talked about this with my friend who really is into surf music. Like he has a whole, I don't know if he's still doing it, but he has a radio show that's just all surf music. And we kind of stumbled up when I think when you had when he had shared the cover he did of the Ultra Q theme that you did the cover art for.
Oh yeah, my Garamon.
Yeah, I sent it to him, and we kind of discovered this weird niche genre of just kaiju themed surf music. Like there's at least 3 kaiju surf artists. There's Cosmic Monster, there's Dai Kaiju, and there's King Ghidorah. I don't know what's going on here, but
I don't know King Ghidorah, but I do listen to Dai Kaiju from time to time, and that's really rad shit.
yeah. So I don't know if there's some sort of hidden subgenre of surf music that's just about kaiju, but there's something there.
Well,
I'm sure of it.
I mean, there's a lot of crossover already because like the whole score for Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, you know,
Yeah.
like the whole like the '60s kaiju boom, like it goes hand in hand. I feel like with the surf rock boom, you know.
That movie
So
especially,
I think
for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and like a lot of Ultra Q, like how jazzy the Ultra Q theme already is. Like, I feel like that era of jazz kind of has a lot in, like spiritually in common. You know, like I'm no musician, so there might be musicians in the audience like cringing at me saying this, but to me, I feel a resonance. You know, but yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps for the interview portion of this episode. So we'll move on to our next and final segment. Hey, Brian, what new cool kaiju thing have you been checking out right now?
Well, I just got the Arrow Gamera sets in the mail, so going to be going through those.
Very nice.
Going to finally watch Ultra Q because I got a bunch of time.
Yeah, Jared, just seen. I lent Brian my copy of the Mill Creek Ultra Q set.
Nice.
Probably after that came out, which was what, 2 years ago now?
No.
Yeah, end of 2019.
End of 2019.
No way.
Yeah,
no way.
October of 2019.
Because I went through Ultra Q very quickly because it's a much shorter series than the other Ultra series, and I lent it to you, and I've been bugging you to watch it.
Oh God!
And you can every week you say, I'm gonna watch Ultra Q. I'm gonna watch Ultra Q.
No, not every week.
So, are you just starting it now?
He hasn't started.
I haven't started
He
it.
hasn't started it.
But every month I'm like, all right, I've got time, and then it gets away from me. But I actually do have time now. I promise.
Listen, Jared's an even bigger Ultraman guy than I am, so like.
I'm gonna do it. I promise.
You're not gonna regret it. Like there's not every episode is flawless, but Ultra Q fucking slaps.
Yeah, I mean that's
this
is what Dave told me, so I'm psyched to watch it. It's just like with the time thing and Dave being not understanding.
Yeah.
I'm only not understanding when it
really
comes
incredible.
to you.
Oh well.
And the Blu-ray is really beautiful.
Oh my God, yeah, it is gorgeous.
Okay.
Although I will say my other favorite way to watch Ultra Q is that little black and white TV that I have. Like it's really satisfying to watch Ultra Q episodes.
Didn't you have that playing in that little aesthetic short on the TV?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's literally I have Ultra Q, it's Tokyo Ice Age playing on screen.
All right, well, I guess Brian will be watching Ultra Q again, maybe.
I'll report back on the next episode. I'll tell you what I thought.
Yeah, if you watch it.
No, I will.
I'm holding you to that. Holding you to that.
Okay, if I don't, we'll figure something out.
We'll figure something out.
All
All right. Now, Jared, I might be wrong about this, but I think you and I were both watching the same thing because I saw you just finished Ultraman Leo. I just started Ultraman Leo.
Yeah, I did just finish Ultraman Leo, and yeah, I'm happy to have finally seen it. I am sad that I have no more 1970s live action Ultraman to watch with fresh eyes. Because Showa era tokusatsu is really my happy place. But yeah, it's a wild show. It is a surprisingly nihilistic show.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've watched just the first disc so far, but my God, is Dan Moriboshi kind of an asshole in this show as opposed to Ultra 7?
Well, my reasoning, like it really works for me, because to me the whole show is about trauma. Especially like the first quarter and the last quarter of the show. It's like every character is like deeply traumatized in some way. Like you have you have Gin, whose home planet was destroyed. You have and now his new home planet is under attack. You have Dan, who can no longer transform into Seven and is like violently injured, and he has to like there's like more fearsome aliens than ever before attacking the Earth, and he has to train this complete greenhorn. Gin's girlfriend, like the island that she grew up on, was like trashed in the first episode of the film. There's the main kid characters of the whole thing are orphans. It's messed up.
Yeah, that was really kind of. I was a little taken aback, especially considering like the last Ultra show I watched was Tara, which is a little more kid friendly. But I think it's just the second episode where their dad is just bisected by an alien. I'm like, that's like really violent. I don't think we've ever seen like a human character get that kind of punishment before.
Yeah, like I think Ultraman Ace had a really upsetting scene with the comic artist, like where he like he's like connected to the monster, and so when the monster's arm gets blown off, like he feels it in his arm, but like you don't actually see his arm get ripped off.
Yeah.
And like he catches fire, and it's a really upsetting scene, but it's not like a very vivid, very graphic bisection of a man on screen, and it also was really shocking too, because at the beginning of the scene they're singing a song that had appeared in Ultraman Taro like just 2 months earlier or something like that, and it feels kind of pointed that they're singing this song from Taro, and maybe it was unintentional because they just had the rights to the song or it was a popular song at the time. I don't know, because I know it was a pop song that they brought into the show. But it really felt pointed that they're singing this like poppy song from the happy, kid-friendly Ultraman from a really goofy episode, no less. And then the song is interrupted by one of the most graphic things I've ever seen in an Ultraman show.
I'd like to point out that during that entire discussion, Brian had this just look of absolute horror on his face.
Yeah, wait till you see. Because I knew I was already aware that it happened, and it still caught me off guard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not the same case here. Like all this Ultraman stuff, I've been going in completely blind.
Yeah, it is deeply unsettling.
Absolutely, and I don't want to get too into this because we did an episode on this last time. I don't know how far into it you are, but how have you been enjoying Singular Point? I know you I saw a post you made, like, I forgot what it was to legitimately love a new Godzilla thing.
Oh, I watched it all in 2 days.
Oh, okay, all right.
I devoured it. I mean, so I have kind of mixed feelings, just in that I'm really picky when it comes to animation, just coming from an art background. I'm not like what animation styles resonate with me, I get really picky about. And I thought Singular Point, like, some shots are beautiful, but then it has a lot of stuff that I just find kind of ugly or like just pedestrian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the way I don't like the CG animation for the monsters. I thought like the red dust, I thought it felt kind of muddy versus like when you actually have like hand animated dust clouds in like older anime.
Right.
But from like a story perspective, like I mean, it made me go cross-eyed. Like I just, I don't understand half of what went on, but it was the most satisfying thing since I think GMK, honestly.
Yeah.
Still.
I think Brian and I both agreed on that when we talked about it last time.
Yeah, definitely also on the cross-eyed thing.
Yeah, and I still consider GMK my favorite modern quote-unquote Godzilla film, even though it's vintage now.
20 years old this year. My God.
Yeah, so it's hardly modern anymore, even though. But like I've been really, the Godzilla projects since 2014. I've been really hit or miss on. I like 2014 well enough. I thought it was really good for what it was. But then like I hated King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong was. I didn't hate it. I can talk about it without getting actively angry. But it was just kind of there. Like it did the thing where like I'm watching it and I'm like, this reminds me of other movies that I think I'd rather be watching.
Yeah, no. When Brian and I covered it for the podcast, I basically started it off with, I watched it twice. I have no desire to ever watch it again.
Yep.
Yeah, it was fine. Like it didn't offend me on the same level as King of the Monsters did.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Shin Godzilla I think is a really fun creature feature, but its politics are
not great.
So.
Well,
yeah, it was really great to watch Singular Point and just be like really enthralled by the story, even if I didn't quite understand what was going on.
Yeah, I feel you'd be hard pressed to find someone who, aside from people who actually worked on the damn thing, you'd be hard pressed to find someone who 100% understood everything that was going on in that show.
I'm sure someone out there on YouTube is making a whole like story like breakdown of it.
Godzilla Singular Point explained.
It's gonna be like 3 hours long.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I think that about does it for the episode. Unless either of you have anything more to add to anything in general.
Nope.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for today then. This has been Talking Toku, Boston's only podcast about Godzilla, Gamera, Ultraman, and all their kaiju friends. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Talking Toku. Jared, where can they find you at?
I'm on most major social medias as Xenofauna, so that's Xenofauna. I'm most active on my Instagram, where I post lots of behind-the-scenes photos and little video clips of what I'm working on at the time. All my finished products are on YouTube, and occasionally I shitpost on Twitter.
And that's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that'll...
there's a Facebook page you can like, too, but the Facebook algorithm sucks so much that I hardly ever use it.
Fair enough. Well, I think that'll do it. I am your host, David Scrivani.
I'm your co-host, Brian Kershaw.
I'm Jared Faust.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.